Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.
We're all watching, of course, the cost of living rising every single day. A lot of that is to do with fuel prices, by the way, because fuel prices have a knock-on effect on everything, to be honest with you. And there is a protest organised for this Monday. And the meeting points for the trucker protest, as it's been called, I think they've changed the name of it now, by the way, but anyway, it was called the trucker protest, is set to bring Dublin to a standstill, and they have been announced that the People of Ireland Against Fuel Prices protest, which is now what it's called, the new Facebook page, previously warned that the entire city will be on complete lockdown during next Monday's protest. They say they will come out prepared on Monday, as the protest could last over a week or until their demands are met. I'll go through their demands in a few minutes. And they claim the demonstration will be one for the history books after causing traffic chaos on motorways and city streets, or city centre streets, since last November. The truckers say they are going to wreak havoc until the government do something to fix the fuel costs or the rising fuel costs. Of course, everybody's affected by the rising fuel costs, not just the truckers. Our heating oil has gone up, our energy bills have gone up. Putting car or petrol in your car or diesel in your car every day has gone up, of course. What is it now? Probably around €2 per litre. It's ridiculous. And everybody knows that. And something has to be done about it. But is this the answer? Richard O'Donoghue is an independent TD from Limerick, and he joins me on the line. Richard, good afternoon to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Now,
good afternoon now.
This protest starts on Monday. And by the way, it's not just truckers. They're encouraging everybody, motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, everybody to join the organisation, and they will lead themselves up next week. From the pedestrians are set to meet at the GPO at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and the march will begin at 10:30 a.m. on O'Connell Street. With locals urged to use public transport where possible to avoid the chaos. So, Richard, do you support it?
Yes, I do support. I support everything to do with getting down the fuel costs in Ireland, and to freezing the tax intake from the government in fuel. That's what people have known that there's a fuel increase, but what we have a big problem with is the tax on the increase. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, the government have over €1 in every litre of petrol in tax.
Of course, and the higher the price of fuel, the more tax they collect on it, of course.
That is the problem. So what I have asked the government, and I've asked the opposition to help us, is that they go to the 2020 prices. You need tax to run the country of 100%. But we go to 2020 prices, they still had 57 cents at that time in petrol. That would bring a reduction of 43 cents at the pumps if they followed that. And that would make a massive difference.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the list of demands by the group, by the way, who remain reasonably anonymous. Nobody seems to want to lend their name to it, maybe because they don't want to get the blame if anything goes wrong, I don't know. Anyway, but their list of demands are petrol to be capped at 110 per litre. You know as well as I do that's probably impossible.
It is, yeah.
Okay, I think realistically, if you could get it down to
130.
Well, I don't even think you could do that. But however, currently the price of oil at the moment, and I know oil is expensive. I know it was that the same expense, by the way, back in 2008, and we were at 130 or 134. Yeah. Anyway, diesel capped at 120 a litre, green diesel capped at 65 pence a litre, home heating capped at 65 cent a litre, and then it goes on. Carbon tax to be scrapped. Now, this is the carbon tax which is planned to be brought in the 1st of May by Eamon Ryan. Eamon Ryan to step down with immediate effect. You don't really believe that's going to happen, Richard?
It can't happen because they have the majority in the Dáil. So unless the backbenchers within one of the governments or somebody behind the Greens pulls out, that's not going to happen. They have the majority. That's why.
Would you like to see him step down voluntarily?
I would myself, because I don't think he's the right man for the job. A lot of the things that he's out of touch with reality once it comes out outside of Dublin.
I think many people would probably agree with you to some degree about that. But
yeah,
I mean,
he's out of touch with reality.
But he is elected.
He's elected, and he's elected by the people of Dublin, and that's been another one of my problems. The cabinet in Dublin is 80% city-based. Yes, they're covering the whole country. If you look at the point of view of fuel prices, and it's because of the rural areas, towns, villages and rural areas. This is now once you actually get outside the Red Cow in Dublin, the infrastructure is not there for public transport. So people have no other option but to drive.
Well, we are going to be talking about congestion charges a bit later on, and I think that is a good point that you've made there, because you can't bring in a congestion charge, for example, in a city, leaving a rural Ireland aside for a second, when you don't have an alternative for people to use.
Exactly, and that's been the main point from the very start with these. So there's 2 million vehicles in Ireland. Mm-hmm. there's 2.4 million people working in Ireland. That means that either tells me that roughly about 400,000 of those are probably using public transport. There's 1.4 million people in Dublin alone. So that would go where the infrastructure, those 400,000 people are probably being allocated.
I think it's actually, I think the figure for that is quite higher. As far as I remember, the figure was 1.4 living in Dublin, 1.7 working in Dublin.
Yes, and I stay outside of Dublin when I go to Dublin, and I'm in traffic every morning going into Dublin, and it's going for kilometres out toward Bray and Wicklow, that direction. That's where it's congested. It's congested coming in from Limerick. It's congested coming in from everywhere. I've asked, if you look at, and if they're really serious about bringing down emissions and they want to meet their targets, we've 90% of the haulage or our fuel processing comes through Dublin Port. That means so the only way of transporting this is by truck, articulated trucks at 7 miles to the gallon. Mm-hmm. So if you look on the motorway, all you see is trucks. I have people at the moment that want to fly out to Rome this week. They can't get a flight from Shannon or Cork. So they have to drive from Cork now to Dublin to take a flight. If we have dispersion of traffic, including air traffic, if we dispersion of food coming into this country to like the refines and the Ross layers...
Are you suggesting that we should have other ports? And I know there was a suggestion that there should be a port in Drogheda or Dundalk, or there should be other ports as well, which would be logical, by the way.
The deepest port in Europe is in Foynes in County Limerick. That's the deepest port in Europe. The largest ship in Europe, in the world, can actually come into Foynes. And that's why we've been looking at investment in Foynes. If that comes in, you're then dispersing the trucks.
And equally for a lot of those trucks heading up to Belfast or heading up north as well, it would be equally... I suppose it would be a good idea to have one up there in Dundalk or Drogheda as well, or somewhere around there.
So every lorry burns roughly 600 litres of fuel in every fill that they have.
Richard, I'm not going to disagree with anything you've actually just said, right? Everything you said makes perfect sense. And on a long-term plan, I think it could be done if we had a brain within the government organisation. But unfortunately, you know where we stand when it comes to government. Sure, you look at the news every single day this week. Every day there's another scandal, right? Or something else has gone wrong. So when you say you support the protest, I support the idea of the protest. And yes, like everybody, I'm affected. You know, I drive up and down to Belfast 3 times a week because that's where I'm living practically now. So I'm driving up and down. It's now costing me €560 a month in diesel, right? So where it was costing me 400. So I completely agree with you. But some of the stuff is not realistic. And the fact that they're saying they're going to stay there until these demands are met. Now, you know, this kind of reminds me of, if we go back in time about 10 years ago, when we had, you know, the Reclaim the Streets individuals who were hanging around Trinity, or not around Trinity, around the Bank of Ireland there, off Dame Street, and were there for months and caused chaos for a period of time. I mean, you can't hold the city to ransom either, because people have to get about their business. And what will happen is you lose support when you do that.
Yes. Well, when I look at this, and I said that I support these, and I have publicly said it, I've said it on social media, I support the prices against for fuel, right? And I do support it, but there's also, I have to point out that I haven't organised this. I have been contacted to know will I support it, and I said yes, I will support what they're doing. As I say, I haven't been in the organising or any of the meetings for this, but I do support what they're trying to do. And it's not only truckers, it's taxi drivers.
Oh, it's everybody.
I
know. This time they want everybody there. So on Monday they want everybody out on the streets to protest. Yes. And I understand. I mean, look, there's nothing better than a good protest. In fact, the water charges is probably the best example we've had in this country. And it gets things done. And everybody in this country objects to the price of fuel at the moment, and the price to energy, and the way their quality of life is being reduced by costs. We all understand that. And the government needs to step in and do more. And Sinn Féin have been calling for the government to do that for the last 3 or 4 weeks. But in saying that, there's a limit to what they can do, according to Leo Varadkar and many others. There's a limit to what they can actually do. They've taken, obviously, a cut in the excise duty. Yes, I completely agree with you. They could do something about the VAT. And they said they will, by the way, at the end of this month.
But at the end of this month at the moment now, we're looking at the agricultural sector at the moment, where they were paying 46 cents a litre last year for fuel for the machines to bring in the harvest, which helps feed the cows, which produce the milk and the bread and the butter for our tables. That's now at the moment of 138 at the moment. So who's going to end up paying if they don't do it now? Everything seems to be, I'll do it in a month, I'll do it in 2 months. It can be done now. And all I asked them to do, and they didn't have to go to Europe for this, all they had to do was cap the fuel cost and take their tax from that cost. We'll just say if they use they brought the fuel price at 130, they take their tax and VAT and custom excise. So it doesn't change any of the tariffs for them. But the cut-off point, once it hits 130, we pay the increase in fuel, but we don't pay the extra tax. That can be done on a system where everyone knows that's the tariff. We can only charge tax on maximum price of 130, and you don't need to change the VAT rate. You don't need to change an excise rate. You just put a cap on where you can take it to. And that.
So in other words, you're only paying VAT on a portion of the fuel, in other words.
You're paying VAT on up to 130
okay.
on the fuel.
Okay.
And that makes sense.
And I don't know how much a barrel of oil is today. It's probably around, I think it's about 130 a gallon, probably, or should I say a barrel.
It's actually on the way down at the moment.
Okay, yeah. It is, and it's been on the way down for the last 2 or 3 weeks, so I don't understand why fuel costs are still rising, which is bizarre. And by the way, a barrel of oil is actually cheaper now than it was back in 2008, I think it was.
It was in 2008, we're only paying 140.
140, so it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of the war has obviously affected a lot of stuff too. But what I have an issue with, and I don't have an issue with protesting, I think it's people's legal right and it's their constitutional right to get out there and demand something is done, and I'm absolutely 100% behind it in that sense. Obviously I can't attend for obvious reasons because I work in broadcasting, but in saying that, I'm supporting it. But what I'm saying to you is, you cannot continue to bring the country to a standstill for a couple of hours, as long as the Garda Síochána are informed and everything is done civilly and peacefully. I get it. But if you're going to continue to do it, because the government are not going to turn around on Monday afternoon to the protesters and say, yeah, that's no problem, yeah, we'll do that, list of demands, aim and get out the door there. None of that's going to happen on Monday. So they're saying, according to them, if it's not done, they're there for the long haul. They're bringing tents, they're doing all sorts of things. So the government are on Easter holidays. They're not even there.
Exactly, and I did inform them before this that the government were on Easter holidays. But
whose bright idea was it to do it this Monday?
I don't know. Actually, I believe it was the group themselves, and I had informed them at the time that the door would be closed. But they said, and the point that was made, they said, Richard, it's very simple. The government buildings are not, there's no one in government buildings, but TDs around and ministers around the country are still working. And they said, and so are we. So they said, just because the Dáil isn't sitting doesn't mean that it all has to centre around the Dáil. So they said, this is a protest for the whole country.
Well, and I know they also mentioned as well they wanted to do it while the schools are off, so it wouldn't affect schools. I get, to some degree, I do get that. Okay, so their belief is that, sure, look, TDs are still listening. So that's the point. Yeah. All right, but again, so you support it on Monday, but do you support it if it continues on through the week?
I support whatever has to happen to...
Richard, come on, you're a clever man, Richard.
I am a clever man. I support whatever has to happen for them to bring...
How much will the economy lose? But Richard, how much will the economy lose on a day? And again, I'm telling you, I support this in principle. Yeah. But how much will the economy lose on a daily basis if you bring a city to a standstill for a never-ending period until you get what you want?
Well, how much is the country losing on a daily basis with the extra cost on food, fuel, electricity cost? And this is a daily basis. And you're talking about Dublin, where there's 80% of the cabinet are city-based. There is more to this country than Dublin.
Oh, I get that.
Right, so the whole counties need to be represented. Now we have ministers running around the country saying, I'm doing this in your county and I'm doing this in your county. Why? Because it's been highlighted. They have forgotten outside the red cow. They forgot to put in infrastructure. If there was infrastructure there for people that they could use alternatives, there wouldn't be a problem. But it's all down to the people that are outside of a city base that do not have infrastructure that are paying for this. They're paying the carbon tax because they've no other choice but to drive a car. So it has to come to a standstill. And no matter what happens, the whole country should get behind these people. But these people need to make sure that they do not put in... They have to leave laneways open for people that they have emergency service. This has to be left open. This is a protest. I do hope to have a peaceful protest, but it is a protest that the whole country should get behind.
But I hope it goes better than the last one, Richard, because the last one from December and November, I can't remember when it was, by the same group, unfortunately was a bit of a damn squib. Nobody got involved. You know, the first one was quite good, if I remember rightly. It did.
Yeah. But what came out of that, though, Niall, was the government now came up with a plan for 18 million to support the road hauliers, right? And they actually missed this again because they don't know what business is. This only covers people with a road haulage licence. Now, if you're a supplier or a producer in this country, you don't have a road haulier licence. But if you had, we'll just say if you had a quarry or if you had a shop or if you were a farmer and you were producing groceries and you had your own transport does not get covered under this scheme. But if I hired somebody else in to draw my product, they would get paid the fuel subsidy. So the producer the manufacturer, even the pig farmer that's producing his own pigs and has his own transport to transfer their pigs, they are not getting this fuel subsidy. That's how simple things can be fixed. They need to make this accountable for anyone that has tax and an MOT on a vehicle that are registered for that tax. They qualify. They've actually taken out 62% of the HGVs in this country because they don't require a haulage license. But they put in this one line, you have to have a haulage license to get the subsidy. That takes out 62%. I know this is wrong because I'm in business. I understand this. But the government could not see this. That was going to be a problem. We're only getting 32% of the haulage association. So we have bus companies are in the same situation, don't qualify.
Okay.
So that's a
No, I get the picture. I think most people get the picture. And I think most people, by the way, agree with a lot of what you're saying, Richard. And they agree with, not only with the truckers, but they agree with everybody who feels they want to protest. And everybody, and I absolutely understand, everybody in this country is being affected by the price of fuel. Because the price of fuel has a massive knock-on effect. If I look around the studio, everything that's in the studio has been brought to me on a truck at some point, including the clothes I'm wearing on my back. So we all understand that everything has to go on a truck at some point. We understand the answers, but they're not going to be there for a few years. But the only answer right now for everybody is that with immediate effect, the government step in and do something about it. I appreciate that. I think most people support that. I think the biggest problem we might have on Monday, and we will obviously have somebody out there talking to some of the people out there on Monday, is that when it brings the cities to a standstill and inconveniences a lot of people, it then starts to lose support. And that's the problem you're going to have. But listen, I appreciate you, Richard. And I appreciate you coming on the air, all right?
And thank you very much.
All right, there you go. Independent TD, Richard O'Donoghue. And again, the list of demands: petrol to be capped at 110 a litre. Probably not practical. 130 is probably the lowest they could cap it at. Diesel capped at 120 per litre. Probably not practical. 130 again, I imagine, is probably the lowest they go. 135 in and around there. Green diesel capped at 65 cents a litre. Home heating capped at 65 cents, which would all, by the way, oil affects obviously the cost of your electricity as well, because a lot of it is produced by oil. These figures are inclusive of that and are for everyone at home and at the pump. Carbon tax to be scrapped. I completely agree with that. The carbon tax needs to be scrapped completely. And not only that, but the increase in May is ridiculous. At a time when we're all absolutely suffering, the very fact that we have a politician in government who is suggesting that he put an extra burden on people because of climate change is absolutely bonkers. That should be put forward or certainly deferred. And our last demand, Eamon Ryan to step down with immediate effect. Lads, that's not going. You just know that's not going to happen unless Eamon Ryan resigns, which he's not going to over your protest. That's not going to happen. But let's just see what people are saying here on our WhatsApp machine.
Hi, how are you doing? I can't come on the phone. I didn't get that man's name, but I just want to say to him, thanks for saying about public transport is not adequate, because I still use my car. I was awarded a free travel pass because I'm now an old age pensioner in February, and I have to say I've only used it twice because the length it takes me, I have to get a bus into Clondalkin village, then a bus from the village down to the Red Cow, and then pay for parking if I need to get the Lewis. If I need to go to my daughter's in Cavan, I have to make my way to Liffey Valley, then a bus to Blanchardstown, and then a bus to Cavan. Same goes for anywhere I need to go other than doing day trips. That would be great, the travel pass, but because there's no link buses or feeder buses, then I've no option but to use my car, which, as I said, I was 66 in February, and I don't know how longer I can pay for it. But other than that, the public transport is a joke. So we need lots more link buses. Thanks a million. Bye.
That's great, and that ties in, by the way, with the next topic I'm going to do as well. And I do want to know, by the way, if people support the protest. Let us know. The number's 087 188 0008. I want to think about the protest, by the way. I think you support the notion of the protest. I think you'd be mad not to, because it affects everybody in the country. But do you support, bringing basically a city, which is, I suppose, I know Dublin is not the centre of the universe. I get that. And for everybody listening around the country, I know it pisses you off to hear that on a regular basis, that Dublin. But sadly, most of our economy revolves around Dublin. So in saying that, if you bring Dublin to a standstill, we lose money to the economy, a massive amount of money.
Niall, regards of Eamon Ryan getting elected, all right, we elect people to do a decent enough job for us, okay? It's like getting a carpenter to do something in your house and he makes a balls of it, all right? You elected him to do that, okay? You made a mistake. We made a mistake on putting him in, so he was elected wrong. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, well, that's your view of it. I'm sure people who are supporters of the Green Party would think differently and don't believe it was a mistake to put Eamon Ryan in. But certainly over the last few weeks, what I'm getting and online and what we're talking about on the air, when I hear some of the stuff that Eamon Ryan has said and other politicians and the remarks they make about Eamon Ryan, he certainly does seem to be out of touch with reality when it comes to a lot of things. We've heard about drive slower and all that kind of carry on. Anyway, a lot of people, by the way, commenting on Tony Holohan as well, saying somebody says he's not the hero that everybody thinks he is. Niall, somebody says it's ridiculous that the taxpayer is now funding his wages, even though he's not actually doing a taxpayer's job. Well, no, he's not. He's working in Trinity College. He's part of Trinity College, and it should be part of Trinity College's remit to pay him. But unfortunately, their pay scale doesn't go up to what he gets, which is 187,000, according to what I'm reading here on RTE. So that's the reason why. And it seems that Micheál Martin kind of knew nothing about it. Well, which, it just doesn't surprise me in this country anymore. But by the way, just before I go into the break, let me just mention this. I spotted this piece by John Fitzgerald in the Irish Times where he outlines the difficulty of driving in Irish cities, and particularly in Dublin, by the way. He's not leaving out Cork, Limerick and Galway, but particularly in Dublin. I know. It's all about Dublin. 2 weeks ago, City Manager Owen Keegan set out a vision to manage city traffic. This involves restricting road space for cars in the car centre or the city centre by relocating it to cyclists. Effectively, this means that road space will be rationed by misery, according to what John is saying here, increasing congestion of car traffic to make it steadily less attractive to drive into or through the city. Now, Owen Keegan, he says, however, has acknowledged that rather than reducing road space for cars, congestion charging could be a better solution. That would mean charging cars for using city streets, with the charge varying by the time of the day, similar to the M50, by the way, when it comes to the speed limit. The way they kind of change it. It's very technology can do that nowadays. There could be a heavy toll for driving at rush hour, with a charge set high enough to ensure only a manageable level of traffic in the day time, resulting in a quicker and more reliable bus transportation on less cluttered roads. Late at night, with fewer cars on the roads, it could be free to drive. Similar to the tunnel, by the way, who charge different prices at different times of the day, depending on which direction you're going in. And he goes on to talk about the fact that other countries have done it. Singapore led on congestion charging, then London followed in 2003. It now costs almost €20 to drive a car between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. In the extensive restricted zone in London. The result has been a success, with buses and those cars that choose to pay the charge experiencing speedier travel times than when congestion was rife. And he goes on to say that technology today could enable much more sophisticated road use pricing. Now, look, it's all well and good, and it's fair to say that you can implement a charge or penalise people, but you can't penalise people for doing something unnecessary or unnecessary actions when you don't supply an alternative. Well, that's certainly in my viewpoint you can't. I mean, how can you penalise? Because it's a tax, essentially. So how can you say to somebody, we're going to charge you €10 for going into Cork, Limerick, Galway, Dublin, into the city, and blocking up the city, we're going to charge you €10 in and €10 out. How can you do that when you don't offer them an alternative? It's all well and good to do it in London, where you have the subways and you have a great public transport system, but in Ireland you don't. There are some good bits, depending on where you happen to live. But I mean, if you're in rural Ireland, for example, and you travel into the city for whatever reason, there might not be public transport that'll get you there. You might have to, I suppose you could do park and ride or something like that. Or as Richard mentioned, park at the Red Cow and get public transport in. But it's not always practical to do that. People have children, they might need to bring them to appointments for hospitals, all sorts of things you might need to get from one side of the city to the other. Not practical if you've got 2 kids and a buggy in your hand and you have to get 3 buses or something to do it. So how do you do it? And how do you turn around then and say to people, well, if you use your car that you're already being robbed for because you're paying ridiculous prices for fuel, car tax, insurance, and now we're going to rob you again and take another €10 off you just because you came through the city. It just makes no sense to me, but maybe you think it's a good idea. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with congestion charges in the city? This is an attack today on everybody, isn't it, really? And do you support the protest on Monday, which is going to go on, as far as they're concerned, as long as it takes to get the government to change their mind? Let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 0008. Do you support the protest? And do you support congestion charges in the cities? Actually, was just saying to me the irony of this, by the way. Last week, or the week before last, on April Fool's, we actually did a kind of April Fool's topic, saying there would be a charge to enter the city. And it's going back to haunt us now. It seems that probably will be the case. Now, they haven't decided on the fee, by the way, yet. but the suggestion is probably somewhere around €10. And not to enter the city, by the way, but, well, it is to enter the city. It's a congestion charge. Yeah. So it kind of is true, which is quite bizarre. Jay, you're on Ireland's Classic Hits. How you doing, Jay?
Afternoon, Matt.
Afternoon. Now, Jay, I was in two minds on April the 1st whether to do that made-up topic that we did, because I said people won't believe it. But here we are in a situation where more than likely we're going to see something much like that. Now, obviously not into every county in Ireland, but into the major cities of Ireland.
I know.
But it all adds to everything, the cost of living and everything else. And you're obviously...
just more taxes, Niall.
Okay, I know, but
just another way of squeezing money out of us.
But you're a trucker. Will you not be there on Monday?
I won't be passing any pickets if I come up to them, but no. If there was a better organisation, if there was a face to this, I would. I got involved in the first one. I done a lot of talking, as you know. I spoke to everybody about it, and the one thing they all asked was who's in charge or who's organising this, and nobody seemed to have wanted to stand up. So,
and why is it? Why they have a Facebook page, by the way?
Yeah, but
why is it nobody wants to take any responsibility when I say?
I don't know. Maybe they don't want us to know who they are. Maybe they have vested interests. I don't know.
Yeah, we did actually. At the first protest, we spoke to them. Well, I know Aisling did, but they wouldn't come on the air.
Nope.
Now, and they've changed their name now. It used to be Truckers Protest. Now they're called the People of Ireland Against Fuel Prices Protest. It's a bit of a long-winded name, isn't it, for a protest? But however, but it does look like it is going to be. Well, from what I can see, the reaction they're getting on their page, there will be a decent turnout for it. I don't know how good.
These are our keyboard warriors. No, didn't we have that at the first time? But now look what happened at the first protest. I got on. I told people about inflation rising and blah, and people no, and we got vilified by a lot of the papers, by RTE, by people on Facebook. The stuff we got called, that way. And
why do you think people vilified you? Because you upset traffic?
People just don't like being upset. They'll get on their phones and their tablets and they'll give out about everything and down with this and down with that. No, we'll stand together in this country. We've no backbone anymore in this country. We're quite prepared to just roll over and just let them do whatever they want to do.
I did say to Richard, look, everybody, I support the right to protest. I genuinely do. And all the way through the lockdowns, I still supported it and I always did. I never reneged on that. But because you have a constitutional right to do so.
Yeah.
But in saying that, when you turn around and say, we're going to have a protest on Monday, well and good, over fuel prices, apps couldn't think of anything better to protest about. There you go. That's wonderful. But we're going to stay there until our demands are met. Bring your tents, but
that's then you're losing.
But you're
that's how you get stuff done. If you just go up and show up for, okay, what do you want to do? Protest business hours, just from 9 to 5 and then everybody go home? They won't listen to that. Unfortunately, the nature of protest is you have to make a difference. You have to upset people in order for people to get onto their politicians and saying this has to stop. But unfortunately in this country, we won't. We'll just go, that's terrible.
No, Jay.
We've no backbone anymore.
Jay, if you go back to the water protest, right? Go back to the water protest.
The last one we had. That was the last of it.
That was the last big protest, about 7 years ago, right? But in saying that, wait, I tell you, 100,000 people turned out, roughly 80 to 100,000 people, right? They didn't stay there for the week.
No, but
the government's hand were forced.
Look what they done after it, though, Niall. They stopped the people from putting the infrastructure in. You've seen the protest. So that wasn't just a one-day protest. That was that was a long period, and that's what brought the government to the table and brought them to their knees. That's what we need. Unfortunately, we're not going to get it this time. People are too wrapped up in looking after themselves. Nobody cares about anybody anymore.
People do. Well, of course people care. It's hitting their pockets, Jay.
Yeah, but that's it. And it's only a certain amount of people that it's really hurting. And the people that matter, the people that actually vote, ain't being hurted by this. So the government ain't going to listen. People in working class areas don't vote. We all know that. You can see where the big turnouts are at elections. They come from affluent areas. And they're the people who have the government ears. And they're the people who matter. So if they're being here, the government will do something. If it's just the likes of me and you, they don't care about us, and they never have.
Okay, but you're not going to this week's protest. But stay there, Jay, just for a second, because, well, hang on. Let me just go to Philip as well. And the reason I know you're not going is because you believe it's badly organised.
Badly organised.
Yeah.
Hi, Niall.
Philip, how are you doing? You're in Ireland's Classic Hits.
How are you getting on, Niall? Yeah, I'm listening in. My question is, I agree with, I think, Jay, with what he was saying. My question is, when are they going to stop? When are they going to change what they're doing?
The government?
My view of the Green Party is they don't want to fix this crisis.
Well, hang on. With the greatest respect, Philip, this is not all the Green Party's fault.
Oh, absolutely. But they're driving a lot of the climate
I know
policies.
the taxes they're bringing in, carbon taxes.
So-
What's that going
so-
That carbon tax is only a small amount on the price of fuel, can I just point out? Now, mind you, it all adds up. But hang on, Philip, with the greatest respect, and we have to be fair, right?
Sure.
There is an increase coming in May, and I, like everybody else, even other politicians have said it should be deferred. And I think Eamon Ryan is asleep at the wheel if he genuinely, or disconnected to the people if he genuinely believes it shouldn't. And he seems to be relentless in bringing in that charge. There's already an environmental charge and a climate charge on, or green charge, as they say, on fuel. But it doesn't make up the lion's share of what we're actually paying. The lion's share is VAT and excise duty. Now, some of that has been reduced, but the excise duty was reduced by the government by 20 cent there, going back a couple of weeks ago. But I do agree with what Richard said earlier on the TD, when we should cap it at a price. Other countries have done that, where you don't charge VAT over a certain price. So I think we'd all agree with that. But you can't blame the Green Party for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that what the Green Party believe and what Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil believe is actually, it's not that different, really. I mean, like, my view is this is massive gaslighting. They want us used to driving slower, as Eamon Ryan said. Like, they are not going to let off the gas on this push. You know, that just basically has Irish people existing and not living. So I think the protests, while we may say, oh, we don't agree with it now, and like it's mass civil disobedience, and I think that's what we need.
Well, I don't think we need.
enough.
When you say civil disobedience, and I support any protest that's peaceful, I don't believe civil disobedience, if you want to call it that, is the answer. I do believe that yes, you have to inconvenience people. I agree with Jay. You have to inconvenience people to have a protest and get your point across. But the point I'm making is well and good. Have your protest on Monday. Go, march from O'Connell Street up to the Dáil or whatever it is. But to continue to stay there until your demands are met, and to continue to hold a city, and an economy to ransom, which is affecting other people's lives. For example, mothers bringing their children for special needs to schools or to access services or to hospitals or sick people or ambulances and all that. Everything gets affected by it.
Well, I'd agree there has to be an aspect of, provisions for services and ambulances and things like that, to allow maybe access corridors and things like that, not blocking routes to hospitals and stuff. But like I said, my view is when are they going to let up? And as Jay said, going from 9 to 5 protest, it's basically just saying pretty please, can we please have these changes? We've tried that, it's not going to work. And with the water charges as well, what people forget, when things actually started changing was when we physically started blocking accesses to the water meters.
And a lot of people got arrested, and a lot of people went.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some people went to jail.
We have to kind of shake the hornet's nest every now and again in society, to put a foot down and say, look, this has to stop. Because what I see, Niall, is where we're going is they want us used to renting. They want us used to not owning a property, and they want us used to basically not driving anywhere, which the first caller rightly pointed out is a death knell for rural Ireland, which,
well, of course, rural Ireland can't sustain itself without driving around. Of course, they know.
Yeah,
okay. What about these? This kind of ties into the next topic. Just finally, before we go into the break, Philip, and I'll ask both of you about this. A congestion charge works in some cities. Would it work in Ireland? Would it reduce the amount of traffic in the city? Because without a doubt, I think we'll all agree that Dublin City, in particular, which would have the most amount of traffic. Cork is pretty bad, and Limerick and Galway too. But Dublin City in particular, it can't continue. You can't continue to allow that much traffic into a city because it just doesn't work.
I think that's a continuation. Their thinking is put a charge on it, put a tax on it.
Rather than fix the problem.
Why don't they actually design traffic systems that don't get congested, or have periods or windows where cars can come in and out to the inner city, rather than just everything now in Ireland? That's their only answer. It's a tax collection scheme. It's a money collecting scheme.
So everything is punish the motorists, punish the taxpayer, penalise the people.
And that's and the thing we don't emphasise enough in it, Niall, it's gone out the window. It's a thing called quality of life. People like to drive into Dublin City, do a bit of shopping and drive home. Now we're saying they're bad people for doing that. That's the Green Party mentality.
Okay, well, look, I'm running out of time. I was going to break, and somebody just did text in that very point and said, I read the other day that someone's saying it cost them €97 to bring the family on the train from Kildare to Dublin. Makes no sense not to just take the car. Well, in that situation, if you've got a few kids Absolutely. Should just take, I would say just take the car. Eamon Ryan wouldn't say that, would he?
Hi, Niall. Just in relation to your question about the congestion charge, I absolutely do not agree with a congestion charge. For one reason, I already pay my road tax, which pays for the roads that we drive on. So if I want to go and sit for half an hour in traffic in town to get to my destination, I should be able to do that free from being double taxed, because basically that's what it is. It's a double tax. I already paid my road tax. I'm not paying a second tax to use the roads that I'm paying for. Absolutely not. And if I want to sit in traffic, that's my choice to sit in traffic. Now, on that note, in regards to park and ride, I think there should be an extensive park and ride facility available all around the outskirts of Dublin, but it should be free. So the bus service in my area is abysmal. So if I could use my car to drive to my local park and ride facility and know that I could park my car for free and then jump on a public bus or a Lewis and get to my destination, I'd be much more inclined to use that than having to pay to park my car and then pay to use the public service, because it's not particularly cheap anyways, So that's my comment on congestion charges.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more if there was some sort of incentive to do it, but there is no incentive to do it, as somebody rightly pointed out, with their children coming from Kildare. It cost them €97 on the train from Kildare to Dublin with their children. And it's cheaper to take the car, just pile them in the back of the car, it costs you €20. So I absolutely see it. There's no incentive to do that. There should be no charge, for example, for bringing the children on the train if that's what you want to do. We have to have a public transport system that's affordable for people, that will encourage people to use not to use the cars if that's really what you want to do. Pauline, you're on Ireland's Classic Hits. How you doing, Pauline? Oh, Pauline. Are you there, Pauline? Okay, I'll come back to Pauline in a second. I'm sorry. Wasn't really there. Pauline, are you there? Okay, I'll come back to you in a second. Let me see if I read out some of these messages coming in here as well. Absolutely ridiculous, Niall. What a stupid idea to punish people by taxing them just for driving their car. Are we not already paying a tax? Well, you are. You're paying a road tax and you're paying everything else as well. Niall, in fairness, all of Eamon Ryan's best contributions to this government have been when he's asleep at all. I couldn't think of a better thing to say. I'm going to go back there to Pauline. I lost it there for a second. Pauline, are you there?
Yes, hi, Niall.
Sorry about that. For some reason, I couldn't hear you.
Not at all. I texted in just to say, I scratched my head. I lived in Sydney for 25 years with some of the things that go on in this country, particularly with public transport. So in Australia, every child has free public transport. Every school-going child has free public transport. You start school, you fill out your form, and you get a card in the mail, and that's it. Until the end, until you finish your leaving cert, you have free public transport.
And do you get free public transport if you're in college?
That I don't know, because I didn't have college-age children when I lived there, but I know that all of my children travelled freely around the city of Sydney on public transport.
Now, pardon my ignorance, right, but I don't know the situation currently in Ireland. So do children in Ireland, say, your average 13-year-old heading to school, do they not get it for free?
No.
Do they not? Because I'm pardon my ignorance. I thought they did. That's how stupid I am now. I thought they did.
Well, I don't. Anyway, my children travel on the Dart, and we do get a discounted ticket, but you still have to pay. And now I know an example last week of a friend of mine's son. He's 14 years of age, and he was on his Dart, and he didn't have his ticket with him, or it hadn't been
his leap card.
Maybe some credit hadn't been put on it or something. He was fined €100. I just thought it was the most outrageous thing ever.
Yeah, that is outrageous.
I I can't understand. It's just such a simple thing in this country. But then, I'll be honest, since I've moved back here from Sydney, I scratch my head a lot of the way the public services are run in this country. I agree with your previous caller. I think we lack a healthy sense of outrage in this country. And I also think that people are just worn down because there's just one bad story after another, one poor public service after another. And do you
drive yourself, Pauline?
Look, I don't anymore, but I did drive my child to school for a while because of the fact that he was on the Dart one day. He was 11 years of age, and he was sort of accosted by a drunk man.
Okay.
And so after that, he got a bit scared and wouldn't take it for a while. But now he's back on it again. So, I mean, that's another issue. Of course.
Okay,
That's
okay.
another story. Is
Okay, well, look, it's a point well made. I have to say, absolutely. If we could decrease the amount of mammies and daddies that are bringing their kids to school by giving children public transport for free, that certainly would reduce some of the traffic, because we all know the difference during the summer when you're going to work in the morning when the kids are off school. Of course, it's a lot easier for everybody. Pauline, point well made. And also, by the way, it goes back to what the other person was saying in the message beforehand. We should be having, if it's park and ride, it should be free to park your car as well. Let's encourage people to do it if that's what they really want to do, rather than penalising and punishing people financially. Patrick, you're in Ireland's Classic Hits. How you doing?
Hi, how you getting on? How are you?
Good. As a taxi driver. Now, Patrick, as a taxi driver, I don't think you'll be paying any congestion charges, or if you do, at least you'll be able to write it off and get it back against tax anyway.
No, probably not, but with the rest of it going on, you're stuck in traffic regardless, I suppose. So,
yeah,
I think that's all that's on their mind constantly is, to charge people because they're driving on the roads and stuff like that. I think less of these cycle lanes and the city mapped out a little bit better will help congestion around the city, but I'm not willing to do that. They have it like a one-way system. I'm sure you've seen it yourself.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's a disaster. Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen Fairview Park at the minute, what they're doing.
No, I haven't been in Fairview Park in some time, actually. I used to go up there quite a lot, actually, to Hillbillies to get me burger.
That's one lane into the city centre at the minute. I think they're doing something with they're doing a new cycle lane into the city centre from there.
Right, okay.
Which they already have. You can drive through the park, cycle through the park on a bike, and you have a cycle lane on the path as well.
There's also a cycle lane on that little bypass road towards East Wall there, whatever that road's called.
Yeah.
So why do you need another cycle lane?
Why do you need another one? Why do you need to take up a whole lane and cause congestion going into the city centre and coming out?
That's a bonkers idea. Who came up with that one?
Yeah, exactly. I wonder who that was. We won't say.
I have to be honest, in Wood Quay there, where the civic offices is, where they make all these wonderful decisions, I'm sure there's in the basement somewhere there's a room with a map of Dublin and they're all blindfolded and it's pinned the tail on the donkey.
I think they just send someone in there with the lights off.
By the way, can I ask you?
Sorry, go ahead.
As a taxi driver, I mean, they talk about congestion in the city. As a taxi driver in Dublin, I mean, is it affecting you obviously it affects you when the city moves slower, but have you noticed the city moving much slower now?
It is, yeah. It's gotten bad over the last, obviously the traffic hasn't been bad through the lockdown and stuff like that because not everyone was working. But since everyone's back, in the office and stuff now, you could notice the volume of traffic in town, the quays and stuff like that. But it's not even just that. It's the design of the roads and with all these cycle lanes. And don't get me wrong, we obviously need cycle lanes and stuff like that. But they have to be designed in a proper way. They can't take up a whole
it's a disaster.
Lane. You know what I mean? Like,
see, when I drive from here, if I was driving from here, say down to Houston Station, I'm at down near the Tree Arena, right?
Yeah.
And I go up the road here, you go left across the bridge, and then you turn right onto the quays on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
When I come up to O'Connell Street, I start getting anxiety because I don't know which lane I'm meant to be in.
Yeah, there's so many lanes there. There's one on the left there. It's supposed to be a bus lane. Then when you go through that, there's another 3 lanes. As you're saying, if you're going to want to go straight ahead or go right for
and then the cycle lane is in the middle of the road at some point.
Yeah,
and I'm going, what's this all about?
Exactly. Yeah, and you see that a lot around different parts of Dublin. The cycle lanes are there. Then it's in the middle. If you ever go up by through Donnybrook, going out towards the motorway that direction, there's a lane there for a bus, which would be if there was a double decker, you'd have to cut it in half. The fitness. And there's a cycle lane as well. And I'm going, well, who designed that? Where it's dangerous more than anything else.
Yeah, no, the keys just gives me anxiety now, so I just don't use it.
Because there's so many buses in town, and if you go up, around College Green when it's busy, you can't get down because, you come down by Trinity.
Of course, yeah.
It's into one lane, it falls down, the Lewis comes around.
Yeah.
You can barely get through there. Coming down when it's busy, and there's a lot of buses, and obviously the buses take up more spaces. So,
listen, I'm running out of time, Patrick. Thanks for coming on and filling us in and all that. Anyway,
real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's Classic